All right, so the tools you're going to be needing for the snake belly build are a drill. You can or cannot use a swivel. It's up to you. The wires we're going to be using for this video are 34, 30, 26, and 20 gauge for your decor. We're also going to be using wire cutters, needle noses. You can use scissors or you could just use the wire cutters for what I do in here. I really recommend hot glue and a lighter, but it's not absolutely needed. You're going to need either a vise, a clamp, maybe a little person or a full-grown adult to help you out, something to hold the wires at the end. If you have trouble seeing, you may also want to use some jeweler's goggles that you could get on eBay if you don't already have them. All right, enjoy the build. All right, so we want to start out with 20 gauge on the drill and on the swivel, and I have 34 and 30 gauge right here. I like to actually just stick these into the drill rather than wrapping it around the 20 gauge first. All right, because it's going to help me with my decor. So I just stick both of these into the drill. After I get it in the drill chuck, I'm going to do a couple turns to lock it in. And then I'm just going to parallel clapton this wire right around that 20 gauge. You could parallel clapton however you want to do it, but this is how I'm going to do it for this one. Alright, so if it's a little spaced, that's okay. Just a little bit of spacing's fine. What you don't want is stuff going over each other. Now, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but I did that there. So I'm going to end up cutting that piece off so it doesn't mess me up. So I'm going to cut this right here, and I'm going to take the clapton off of the 20 gauge. So now I have my decor here. On to the next step. Alright, so what I'm going to want to do next is I could actually cut this piece off of here, and I also got a piece of 26 gauge that's a little more than 2 times the size of my decor. So what I'm going to do with this 26 gauge is I'm going to take it from both ends, and I'm going to actually fold it in half. Alright, and I'm going to get this very tight here. I'm going to take a pair of needle noses and I'm going to make it very, very close to each other. I want to get this to be a very tight loop here by pinching down both wires. Having trouble doing this in front of the camera, but I'll get it. There it is. So I want it a very, very tight pinch there. Alright, and I got my 2 wires nice and straight. You're going to want them nice and straight. Make sure they're not crisscrossing though. They're going to want to crisscross when you bend them in. So try to make sure they're not crisscrossing. Alright, now what we want to do is we want to stretch this wire out because we're not going to be able to feed the 26 gauges down there if it's not stretched out. Alright, it's going to be hard to separate them if you don't stretch it out. So what I'm going to do is just like we would do with something like an alien. I'm going to take the end of this and the end of this, and I'm going to stretch this decor until you see the spirals, but it kind of separates. Now you don't want to stretch it too much or it's going to be hard to send it down. You want to have a pretty nice spiral here. I'll see if I could zoom in on this. Alright, and you are going to want to stretch out this end as well. Okay, you want to have the very end stretched out definitely. At least one of the very ends. If the other end ain't stretched out, that's okay. Alright, now the goal is to get them separated up here at the tip. You don't have to separate the entire thing, so you want to cut that clean. And you want to separate the 30 from the 34, at least up here at the end. And I'm going to try to do this without turning the camera off and getting it in front of my face. It might be a little tricky to do, but I'm going to try to do it so you guys see everything. It can be difficult to get them separated. I like to just kind of put it in my finger and twist it the opposite way. Sometimes if you bend it, you could get them to separate better. So you just got to get them separated. See, just sometimes twisting it will separate them a bit. So they're kind of separated a bit. You see how the 34 and the 30 are separated a little bit. So what I want to do is I want to take my 26 and I want to send it down the 30 gauge. Alright, I don't want it to go into the 34. I just want it to go into the 30 gauge. And that's why you do two different wires, is so that you could tell them apart. Alright, so I'm going to take this 26 and shove it into the 30 gauge, but make sure that it pushes the 34 gauge away and it doesn't go into the 34 gauge. It's going to end up pushing the 34 up and putting it next to the 30 gauge instead of inside. Once you get it started, it should follow. I just had it in there and I messed up. Alright, I had to bring it up to my face to get it. I'm sorry, but you see, as you start pushing them two 26s down there, it's going to start separating them. This is the 34 on the top, and I'm going through just the 30 gauge. And now, if all the sizes of your wires are correct, you should be able to just push these two 26s in there. You want the two 26s to stay parallel though. So you want basically the 34 sitting on the top of the middle of them two 26s. You want to really try not to have this twist up. Alright, so you see I'm just shoving it in there. It's pushing the 34 up and out. Alright, you do not want these 26s to bend. You want it to be a straight shot all the way down. If it does bend, you could try to straighten it out, but you might have a hard time sending it through with any kind of kinks in your 26. But it's just pushing all the wires out of the way. Now, the sizes of the wires you choose to use for this are very important. You can substitute the 34 for 32. You could substitute the 30 for 32. Or I'm sorry, the 34 for 36. You could substitute the 30 with 32. You have to keep it 20 and 26 gauge on the cores. If you change what you decore off of, you're going to have to change what your cores are going to be as well. All right, so I'm just sending this down, and I'm going to keep sending it down until I get to the top here of my 26, which I'm almost there. All right, that's how much I have left to push through. All right, and now what I'm going to do before I get all the way to the end is I'm going to take this 26, bend it down, and crimp it really good. Now, if you watch the Coil Wars, or the Coil class live, I got to this point and then I pushed it off of the wire on accident. So you want to tie this up really good. What I did for the last one that I got successful is I actually hot glued this end as well. Alright, so I'm going to push that up there like that. Alright, so I'm pretty much in there now. Now you could see I have a pretty long amount of this wire. Alright, it's more than a coil's worth for sure. But what we have to do now is we have to push this wire up and get all these tight. So if you have more decor than you have wire, what you want to do is cut off the decor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my scissors, cut the decor right where my cores end. Alright, and then I'm going to get the cores out this side. Alright, there's my cores, and I'm going to grab them cores, and I'm going to bend them real quick. Now I'm going to come back to that in a second. I'm going to hot glue this end up. Alright. Alright, so I got the one end hot glued so this clapton won't come off of there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down to this end. I'm going to grab this end with needle noses, and I'm going to take this clapton and I'm going to push it all the way up, and that's going to get all them wires nice and tight together. Alright, it's going to crush all them wires together so it's like a nice tight clapton. Now you're going to see this wire got a lot smaller. You see how big it was and how big it is now? It's still a single coil, but it's a lot smaller. And you want to get this thing up there tight, I noticed. You want to get it pushed all the way up. That's why I like to hot glue that end. And when you get it pushed all the way up, you could bend this guy down and lock it in there. Now, you could also tie this end off and hot glue this end as well. Alright, because you don't want that coming off later. Alright, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tie this up here. I'm going to hot glue it and cut off this excess 26, and I'll come back with the next step. Alright, so I hot glued the other end. I'm getting the spikes all stuck up on the top here. Sometimes you got to twist it into place, and that's fine. If you have to twist it into place, you have to twist it into place. But you see how the 34 is sticking up over? That's what you want. You want that 34 sticking up on top. Alright, so I got both ends hot glued. 34 is sticking up, and now I just got to flatten these down. So there's so many ways to flatten these down. I'm going to show you a way that I'm going to use. A vise is going to help a lot. Alright. Alright, so I got the wire installed in a vise here. I got my vise clamped to my table, and the spikes, the 34 gauge spikes, are sticking up. I'm going to take some needle noses, grab this end, and pull it basically away from the vise. So I'm getting this wire nice and tight, alright? And what we're going to do is we're going to bend these 34 down one way. Now you could use so many things. If you guys ever seen me do a snake spine, I do it a little differently than this. But you could really use anything. As long as it's nice and flat or whatever, you could use anything. And I'm just going to bend this 34 down. So you're going to want to do it all in one motion if you can. If you do it in a couple motions, make sure you just go back and get the right side. flatten all the wires out. So I'm gonna try to get a nice shot of this. If not, I might have to insert another shot from another camera into this video. Sorry, it keeps getting blurry, but I think you could kind of get the idea of what I'm doing here. I think. Can you focus? Alright, so they're all flat down. Alright, so when wrapping this up, obviously we want that part that we flattened, we want that to be pointed up, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to take this wire and we're just going to slide it over to the end of the vise, and we're going to use the vise to wrap this. Alright, so I'm just going to get it over here in the vise. This way it's holding one end. I'm going to make sure my 26s are at the bottom. And we're going to wrap this coil up around this 3mm bit. And just make sure that them spikes stick up. These can be very tricky to wrap. It's kind of hard to see sometimes where you're supposed to be wrapping it. But if you use a vise, it's probably going to be a lot easier. It's very deceptive when it's wrapping of what side should be up and what side should be down. So a vise is going to help you quite a bit. Alright, sometimes you might have to twist it one way or the other to get the flattened part to stand up where you need it. Alright, and then after I get done wrapping it, I actually just like to go through with my fingers, check which way it's flattened, and kind of just push my fingers the same way that it's flattened. Maybe I flatten it out a little bit more. Alright, let's see what it looks like installed. When all is said and done, here's what it looks like. I'm going to attach another close-up picture to this video. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to zoom in really good with this coil or not, but this is that same exact wire all wrapped up. And I'll attach another picture too that I did to this video. Hope you enjoyed, hope this helps. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, comment. If you want to support the channel, hit me up on Patreon, n.devine83. Check me out on Instagram. I hope this helped. It's a fun coil to make, and it should be pretty good too. Installed in the Goon version 1.5 here. Thanks for watching. Alright, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, comment, and I'd like to give a special thanks to all my patrons. Alan Hendricks, Alexander Stewart, Alex Hall, Black Cat Whiteface, Bobby McGreedy, Bones the Skater, Brad Collins, Brian Feeney, Selena Matilla, Jesse Galona, Chris Payne, Christopher Sandberg, Clint Johnson, Dave Flowers, Gaz Callahan, G. Wright, Glenn Donaldson, Grady Moore, Henry Branson, Jason A. Ayoc, Jerry Lawrence, Justin Crabtree, Kelly Bell, Life of Apes, Lino Velez, M. Gunther, Merlin and Kim, Michael Chambers, Mr. Pebble, Nathan Winkley, Oma's Where the Art Is, Patrick Felvry, starting to be tongue twister here, Paul Casper, Perry Jackson, Philip Wheeler, Red Unicorn, Redneck Vapor, Rodrigo, Sean O'Garrity, Sean Rice, Tammy Paradis, The Vapor Cat, Todd Black, Trevor Is That One Person, Venancio Diaz. Zoituk, and Sakuru Kanar. Thank you, everybody. I really do appreciate it. You guys go above and beyond. It's just awesome, and we're just getting started. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Have a good one. Peace.